All right, it is time to skol with the enemy, baby. All right, welcome back to the Onebar and Lupagus show. I'm Onebar with Lupagus and special guest Andrew Juge from the Saints Happy Hour podcast, repping the Saints today. We'll have the links down in the description. Be sure to check him out. He's a two-timer coming on the show. Happy to have him back. Andrew, how the hell are you doing, man?
Guys, I'm good, and I'll say what I said last time. I'm a huge fan of your show, and I have to say I hate the Vikings, but I don't hate you guys.
Thank you.
And so I really appreciate you having me on. I'm glad to be back.
No, the feeling is mutual. I mean, we hate the Saints, absolutely, but you guys do have a great show. I'll just tell Lupagus, I mean, you guys are drinking, you keep it loose. It's no lack of feelings. I was just watching one after the last game. You guys were all pissed off. You were drinking vodka out of a skull. It was wonderful. So check out the links. Be sure to give them guys a sub for sure.
Hell yeah.
And Sean Payton's gone. One of the most hated from a Viking standpoint. He's still gone, and I still hate the Saints. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was hoping that Sean Payton being away from the Saints would start to change maybe the way the games are officiated for us. But that really hasn't happened. I feel like the Saints bias is still alive and real with officials. And I know every fan says this, but I really think in our case it was true because I think the officials held it against Sean Payton that he was on the competition committee, and he decided to say, hey, we need to start reviewing pass interference because we got screwed on that call against the Rams in 2018. It cost us a Super Bowl, and the rule got changed. And you guys know this. You saw this for a year. They were reviewing pass interference. They almost never overturned it. Almost never. I mean, it was just like, we're going with the call on the field, even if there's clear visual evidence that there was pass interference. And I think refs resented Sean Payton for pushing that through. And the whole experience was so terrible that a year later they reverted back to the old rule that you can't, review it anymore. And I just feel like ever since then, the refs have doubled down on screwing the Saints. And we've gotten a little taste of it over the last few weeks. So I know every fan says it, but in our case, I swear, guys, it really is true. It's real.
Juge, salty, man.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, well, let's get into this. Vikings Saints across the pond. Just right off the bat, I mean, looking at your roster, I'm having a hard time figuring out like what the Saints angle is as far as where you guys are right now. Like the Vikings, they got a new coaching staff, new GM, but they're still like, whether it's going to work or not, they're still all in. They're still going to try to just get a championship. They're not rebuilding. Where are the Saints right now? I mean, where are they headed this season, and where are they at just roster-wise?
Well, I think if you look at the offseason, it's exactly what you just said about the Vikings. I think, Sean Payton left, but otherwise not a whole lot changed. Dennis Allen was elevated from defensive coordinator, but they kept the existing staff. So Dennis Allen kept all the same coaches because obviously Sean Payton didn't go and poach a bunch of guys. So it's the same staff. It's mostly the same players. And, Mickey Loomis, the GM, is like, yeah, we're not rebuilding here. We're going all in, and we're trying to, they traded away next year's first round pick to move up in the draft and get Chris Olave. And I think the Saints are the same way. Now, unfortunately, through 3 weeks, it feels like it's blown up in their face a little bit. And, we'll see where it goes from here. But I don't really have a good answer for you. And I think it all stems from the quarterback play. Jameis Winston had an ankle issue during training camp. He missed 2 weeks of preseason. That was a big deal. I think he's the kind of guy that needed time, and maybe he rushed back. His ankle wasn't healthy. And then in the first game, he cracks 3 vertebrae in his back. 4 cracked vertebrae. And so he's dealing with that. He's dealing with a lot of pain. He's banged up. It's affecting his performance. And I really think it stems from there. You guys know this. Look, they've been in all 3 of the games. They could very easily be 3-0 right now. But bad quarterback play will sink any team. It doesn't matter how good you are. I actually think this roster is really good. Now, they have had some injuries, and so that's starting to creep its ugly head. But I think the Saints roster-wise are pretty solid. I just don't know if they have the quarterback play to support it.
All right. Well, nice to meet you finally, Mr. Juge. I'm Lupagus. So the Saints, they won week 1. They lost 2 in a row now, all divisional games. What's morale like around New Orleans right now with this team?
It's pretty bleak. It's amazing how quickly fans turn on their team when we've been so overconfident for so long. But I think there's a lot of inner strife with Jameis Winston. Like, it starts there. And there's like a fraction of the fan base that's all in on Jameis and believes that he can be a top 10 quarterback. I think the people that fall in love with him, obviously, his arm talent, right? He's got tremendous arm strength. He can make throws that most quarterbacks in the league can't make. There's, probably – I would say he's probably top 5 in the NFL in terms of arm strength, right up there with Josh Allen and those guys. And so, I think they see the potential, they see the ceiling when you have that kind of talent. And I think a lot of Saints fans just assume he's eventually going to tap into that. But I think there's other Saints fans that are like, he's been doing this for 8 years. It's never really worked out. So, like, why is the light going to come on now? Like, he is what he is. And so I think a lot of Saints fans feel like there's a lot of inner strife and fighting amongst Saints Twitter, as we call it, because people now are ready to see. Imagine this, guys. We've got a section of the fan base that is clamoring for a 34-year-old Andy Dalton to start at quarterback. That's where we're at.
Dalton.
Yeah. But we
don't want
large
Dalton.
Majority.
We might go. We got some fans that want to go back to Taysom Hill.
Hey, we got a chunk who still want Kyle Sloter to play here in Minnesota. So I hear what you're talking about.
Yeah. We feel you. So talking quarterbacks. I mean, I like I said, I've watched a handful of your shows, and you guys get very riled up with the quarterback situation. Winston, still crazy to think he's been in the league for 8 years. Seems like he's been in the league for like 3 years for some reason to me. But he's banged up. Is he going to start Sunday? And if it was up to you, who would start on Sunday?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Dennis Allen, he missed practice on Wednesday. He was a DNP, and that's kind of the first time against his will, I'll mention. Jameis wanted to practice, and the Saints were like, no, we're going to sit you, and we're going to give you some rest. And so that was kind of surprising, and Jameis Winston came out and said, like, not my choice. I'd rather be with my team practicing. And Dennis Allen said, hey, our expectation is that Jameis will be with us tomorrow and that he will start. Well, tomorrow's come, and he was a DNP again today. So that was a little bit of a head scratcher because Dennis Allen just told us he was going to practice, and the expectation is that he'll start. So I think we're looking very closely at Friday now, because if he's a DNP on Friday, there's no way he's playing in this game. I think he probably needs to be full on Friday to have any shot. And if he doesn't play, I think, it's obviously Andy Dalton would get the start, but I think you would have a healthy dose of Taysom Hill sprinkled in, and Taysom's taken a lot of snaps at quarterback this week at practice. So that's what we'd be looking at. This is a tough one for me because if Jameis was healthy, I do think he's the best quarterback on the roster. Doesn't mean I think he's great, but I think he gives the team the best chance to win. But if he's not healthy, it becomes, is a 34-year-old past his prime Andy Dalton healthy better than Jameis with all the elements that he has? And I think the Saints fans that are clamoring for Dalton are in for a rude awakening, because he's not the knight in shining armor that's going to come save the Saints. He's just not going to do that. So I think it's a tough position to be in. I could see it going either way. I don't have a strong stance here, but I will say the one thing that Andy Dalton could do for the Saints, I don't think he's elevating anything. I don't think he's winning them the game, but having a quarterback in there that won't lose them the game might be just enough to win a game. And I think that's where we're at. Like, the turnovers, the mistakes, the lack of pre-snap identification with blitzes. I mean, I don't know how into the weeds you guys want me to go with X's and O's, but offensively, the biggest problem that Jameis has had is communication with the offensive line pre-snap. And teams have been green dog blitzing their linebackers at will on the Saints and getting free blitzers in to hit Jameis at will. And so you see this happen 3 weeks in a row. I know the Vikings have been watching tape, and they're like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to run delay blitzes with linebackers all day long. So that's what I'm expecting if Jameis starts. And my hope is that Andy Dalton, maybe with his experience, can get alignment a little bit better, communication a little bit better, get the ball out, and just not turn it over, not give the game away.
Well, lucky for you, Zadarius Smith did not practice again today, so there's one dog that I won't be going after.
Hey, I'll take anything I can get at this point. Morale, in case you can't tell, like, I'm actually one of the more upbeat Saints fans typically. Morale is low.
Yeah, I'd have low morale too if I just got beat by Baker Mayfield. No, I mean,
That's not nice, Lupagus.
Sorry.
Andrew's our guest.
It's
I'm
too
sorry.
soon. Too soon.
All
Too
right.
soon.
Sorry.
Rude as hell.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's change gears a little bit. What's your opinion of London games? Are you a fan? Not a fan?
I think it stinks for the Saints because last year, first 17 game season, they had 8 home games, 9 road games, and this is counting as their home games. So technically, they do it again, right? Eight home games, 9 road games, but this is a home game. So, yeah, that part's lame. I think it puts teams at a disadvantage in terms of both that part of it, but also scheduling. You got to fly across the pond. It throws off your whole week. They don't have a bye week before or after, so like they got to go right back and play in New Orleans next week. And so I just think it makes it really tough scheduling wise for teams. So I don't love it. I think it's cool for the fans. I wish there were some plans in place to make it more manageable for the team. But like if there's one thing I'm hanging my hat on, I am superstitious, and I will make myself believe that the Saints will win based on weird superstition or weird things that I come up with. And the Saints are 2-0 in London. They've never lost, and so if there's one thing I'm hanging my hat on, it's that you guys are screwed because of that.
Lupagus, you want to tell him?
You know who else is 2-0 in London? The Vikings.
Let's go.
Something's got to give. Something's got to give.
All right, something's got to give. I'm feeling less confident all of a sudden.
London game. It'll be 8:30 when we're watching it. Will you have? Is it too early to drink? I mean, what's your thought on that? Make us feel.
Well, look, listen. Bloody Marys, mimosas. I mean, there's a whole menu of drinks that exist for this very purpose.
You're right.
So
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
So
Thank you.
Listen, no shame. Now, look. If you come right out of the gate and you're going Red Bull vodka at 8 a.m. or something like that, then I would say, okay, that might be a little aggressive. If you're busting out the bourbon, that might be a little.
That's
might be an early start. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, there's stuff on the menu exactly for this.
So Chris Olave, you mentioned him. Hell of a game last week. I don't even know what it was, 9 for $150 or something. And you gave up your pick last year, but how good is this guy? How good is he going to be? Are you guys just stoked? Is he already your top receiver?
Well, Michael Thomas looks healthy. No, actually, he just got hurt in this last game, but for the first 3 weeks, he was looking real good, like the Michael Thomas of old. And statistically, you might see his stats and be like, that doesn't look like Michael Thomas of old, but like the coverages that the attention that he was getting was creating a lot of opportunities for the other guys, and for Olave, for example, to have huge stat lines. So I don't know that he's the best receiver yet, and that's been one kind of encouraging thing that he's looking better. So he's got a toe issue now, and that's another guy we have to look at on the injury report. He's a big deal because he helps Olave get open. But I will say this about Olave: there are some things about his game. He's not from a size perspective. He's not a dominant physical stature guy, right? So I don't know that he's going to overpower corners, but the speed and the route running ability combination is really impressive, and he's got great hands. And what I'm already seeing from him, the fastest receiver I probably ever saw in a Saints uniform was Ted Ginn. And Ted Ginn, teams were so terrified of him that you would see these coverages where guys would be 15 yards off the line of scrimmage from him. And he wasn't a great route runner, but he would run these hook routes where, the minute he's selling the go route, the corner is going and run as fast as he can to try to stay with him. And then, he turns and runs a hook route, and it's just like a free 12 yards every time. And we're starting to see that with Olave. So that's the part that's really exciting, because he stretches the field. He beats you deep a couple times. You start to get really scared of him. And then it just makes it a lot easier to get the small stuff. There was a couple plays where the guy was so far off him, he literally turned, looked at Jameis at the line of scrimmage, caught passes, and went for 8 yards. And so those are plays that receivers don't get that unless they command respect because of the speed that they have. So he's pretty special. We're excited about him.
Yeah, he's going to probably have a lot of open room because Ed Donatell's been playing his corners 15 yards off the receiver, so might see some hook routes.
Nice.
Not great news.
Right, I will.
Not great news.
It's not.
Maybe
it's
Andy
not.
Dalton maybe there's hope for Andy Dalton.
There might be. So we've kind of alluded to injuries all throughout this so far, but can you elaborate a little bit more? There were some big names on the injury report. Who do you expect to have available for Sunday? Who do you expect to be out?
Well, there's a lot of guys that are limited. And so I think you'll see on the injury report Friday, you'll see a bunch of guys that are listed as questionable. And I think that part of that's by design, right? Keep you guessing. But I think Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas are the two really big ones. My expectation is most of the other guys that you're seeing limited will play. Ryan Ramczyk at right tackle, that would be a big one to miss, but I think he plays. Jarvis Landry has a sprained ankle. He's a maybe, so he's another one that's unsure. So at receiver, all of a sudden, if you're missing Landry and Michael Thomas, you're starting to get pretty thin, and that would be good for the Vikings. And I think you would look at that as Olave is less scary if you can put more attention on him because Michael Thomas and Landry aren't there. So, yeah, a lot's up in the air right now with the quarterback. We don't know who's at quarterback. We don't know who he's throwing the ball to. So it is a little uncertain there. But look, here's the deal. Like the Saints, they're going to win games this year by defense. They have a very good defense. I would say when their front is playing well, you can't run on them. And they have given up two 100-yard rushers already this season. So that's kind of unlike them. But, week one, I kind of attribute that to not playing guys in preseason and just kind of not being in it. Against Tampa, they were phenomenal. They completely shut down Leonard Fournette. And then in week three, Christian McCaffrey's a special player. He made guys miss, but I think anytime it was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and they tried to run with him, the Saints completely stuffed it. So the stats lie a little bit with the McCaffrey one. But I think also pass defense has been tremendous. They've done a great job of shutting down Tom Brady in week 2. They completely shut down Baker Mayfield at 22 yards passing at halftime. They missed a couple tackles and on a 67-yard touchdown pass. So that was unfortunate because that was really the only play the Panthers made all game in the passing game. So anyway, the Saints have a good secondary, and if they're going to win or lose, it's going to be because their defense kind of carried them, and it's still very good. And so the hope has to be that Lattimore can lock down Jefferson. I mean that matchup. I don't care, if you're just a football fan and you don't.
Said I'm out of here. Didn't like it.
I think he's going to come back. I really do.
Hey,
there he is.
Sorry about that. My phone got weird.
Good.
But so yeah, no, I think Jefferson and Lattimore. I don't care if you're not a Saints and Vikings fan. If you're just an NFL fan, that's the matchup to watch because I really do think Lattimore is one of the best corners in the league, and Jefferson might be the best receiver. And I think if the Vikings can make plays on Lattimore with Jefferson, because I know that's going to be the Saints' plan is we're going to trust Lattimore in an island. We believe he can shut down Jefferson, and I know the Vikings are like, well, we'll take single coverage on Jefferson all day. And so to me, that's the matchup to watch because if the Saints can be effective taking him out of the game with just Lattimore, then I think they can do a lot of other things defensively to slow down Cousins and company. But if Jefferson is consistently making plays, I think you'll see that in the first quarter. If Jefferson makes a couple big catches over Lattimore, you can feel like we got these guys.
Once again, Andrew Jude from Saints Happy Hour podcast. Links down in the description. Check them out. So 1-2 right now. Can the Saints turn it around? I mean, I know morale is low right now, but there's got to be part of you that sees some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, could they actually turn this around and be successful this year?
Look, I think anything can happen in the NFL. They certainly have the talent. So, yeah, it's possible. The weird thing is that special teams, they've invested so much in special teams with individual players. They're supposed to have a great kicker and punter tandem, and they've both been a disaster so far this year. I think that's an outlier. It's weird that Lutz is missing a bunch of kicks. It's weird that Blake Gillikin, their punter, is off to a slow start. But those guys are, have a history of being really good. So if they can turn it around on special teams, I will say, Kamara, for example, he fumbled one time all year last year. Last week, he fumbled and went back for a touchdown. So really out of character. Mark Ingram has fumbled twice in the first 2 games, lost both fumbles. He never fumbles. He's a guy historically who's always been great carrying the football. So there's been a lot of weird circumstances with missed field goals and fumbles from guys that normally never drop the ball. And so, look, there's 2 ways to look at that. Number one is that's an outlier and it will correct itself and it will normalize and they won't have as many mistakes, right? The other way to look at it is this is how bad teams lose. They find new ways to screw up every week. And that's how the Saints kind of feel right now. They feel like a bad team that is finding new ways to lose because the guy that you count on is not delivering the way that you expect. So I don't know. I'm honestly, I'm kind of caught in the middle. I don't know what to expect from the Saints. I'm hopeful that they can turn it around, but when your starting quarterback has a broken back and you don't have a great solution there, I kind of lean towards pessimistic. I think it's going to be tough for them. At some point, you just have to get weird and go with Taysom Hill. And I'm being serious. As much as I don't think he's a quarterback and I don't think he has a future in this league, I think you have to count on your defense and your special teams and just say, you know what, like if the offense isn't working out, like we just need to get weird. And so I don't know that I'm there yet, but I'm getting closer.
Love getting weird. It's my favorite.
All right. So you mentioned if Jefferson can have success against Latimer one-on-one, that'd definitely be positive for the Vikings. Where are some other areas on the Saints the Vikings could take advantage of?
Well, I just think the Saints make their hay stopping the run. So they've got to do that. And I know that's such a big part of what the Vikings do offensively. So I think that's another big one where if the Vikings can't run the football, similar to Tampa and against the Saints where they couldn't run the ball at all, I think that's a big win for the Saints. And if they do run the football effectively, then I think the Saints are left scratching their head a little bit. So that's one thing to watch. I think on paper, look, the Saints offense, they're not moving the football. The Saints offense is, at least with Jameis, they have the danger of getting vertical. So they have hit some long passes to Olave in particular. So they can hurt you with a big explosive play here or there. But in terms of moving the chains consistently, the short game isn't there. The passes aren't accurate. The blitz pickups aren't good. So this team isn't moving the football and they're not putting up points. And so it's hard to win football games when you're not scoring. And when they have to settle for field goals, they're missing those field goals too. So the offense is really snake bitten right now. And I think where I would be worried if I were you guys is if they hit a couple if they play well early. If the Saints offense gets in a rhythm where it's 10-7 after the first quarter and they've got a couple touchdowns, like we really haven't experienced that yet this season. So I think that would be a troubling and worrying sign because maybe they're starting to figure it out.
Well, Ed Donatel and the Vikings defense has not been fantastic one bit, so you might get your shot.
Well, it's struggling to stop the run, right?
Yeah, pretty much everything.
It's just
so
hasn't
look,
been good.
I mean that's the thing. Yeah, maybe it's like feed Kamara, and Kamara just has to have the game of his life. And I think that's where maybe the Saints.
Yeah, that was last Christmas, couple Christmases.
Let's run it back. Let's run it back. 5 touchdowns. Let's do it again.
Well, shit, he got 6 last time. We'll take 5.
Yeah, wasn't it 6?
Oh, was it 6?
I don't know. I could be.
I quit counting.
Yeah,
it felt like 6. It probably felt.
He
like
had more
7.
touchdowns than I had presents.
I think he just scored again. Actually,
yeah, he might have.
Before Lupagus asks you expectations on Sunday and we wrap this thing up, I got to know. I mean, I was looking at your roster, a lot of former Vikings, mostly in your practice squad, but you also got Wyatt Davis. I see as your backup guard. And you know what? We're going to be pulling for him. Lupagus and I wanted him so damn bad, proving that we know nothing about draft prospects. We get him in round 3. The dude never, ever plays. So Wyatt Davis is a Saint. What are you thinking? I mean, is this guy the future of your offensive line? How excited are you for Wyatt Davis?
I got to be honest.
This is Wyatt Davis, man.
I have no expectations whatsoever. Yeah,
you didn't know
I
have
got no expectations for Wyatt Davis. Yeah, I
You're breaking our hearts, man. You're breaking our hearts.
I could pick him out of a 2-person lineup.
I was hoping you were going to say you've just heard nothing but rave reviews about this guy. Wyatt Davis' dream is dead. It's over, Vikings fans.
I got nothing.
Get over it.
Yeah. All right. So what are your expectations for Sunday? You don't have to give us the score, but how do you see this thing shaking out in London?
Well, my score prediction was 34-10 Vikings. As the week progresses, I'm feeling a little bit better. Again, the Saints are 2-0 in London, but now I know the Vikings are also 2-0 in London, so I'm not feeling so good about that anymore. So maybe I'll go back to that 34-10 Vikings. I just think the Saints look at some point, and I think the Saints defense has played really well, but like at some point they get, how frustrating must it be that you get stop after stop and it's 3-3 in the third quarter? How annoying is that? Or even worse, Kamara coughs the ball up and you're down 7-0, and you didn't even give up anything, right? So I think at some point the defense gets so frustrated that it's only natural that the floodgates would open. And I think this is the offense that can kind of do that to them, just with the weapons that they have. And Adam Thielen, we haven't even talked about him, but he's a noted Saints killer in his career. So, yeah, I think it's going to be ugly. I think Vikings win big.
Wow.
Wow.
Getting our
Right.
hopes up, which usually does not pan out well, but we'll take that any day. Andrew Juge, Saints Happy Hour podcast. Well done, sir. We appreciate you hopping on.
Absolutely.
And we'll be checking out a show. Check out the links down below. Hopefully you're enjoying a nice helping of Spotted Dick while you watch the game on Sunday morning with a nice vodka in your hand.
Mimosa.
You're right.
Yeah, I'll be drinking out of some skulls again. Mimosas. That's right.
That's
Hey,
right.
thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Boom. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.